Good Friday morning. This is WKRK in Murphy, 11:04 our time. We're a minute early. Can you believe that?
Oh, my goodness.
A minute early. We're normally not early at all. We're normally running a little bit behind schedule on Fridays, but that's okay. This is 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, and worldwide at country.am. And at this time every Friday, we have Sheriff Derek Palmer from the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office on the air with us to tell us what's going on around the county and law enforcement, public safety information. Good morning.
Good
Welcome
morning.
back
How
to
are
the
you?
show.
It's good to be here this morning.
I'm good. How about yourself?
Well, I've been going since about 7 o'clock this morning and hadn't had breakfast or anything today. And I just knew that when I got here, there was going to be, Helen was going to bring a cake and it was going to be sitting here.
You missed out last week.
I know. I was gone last week and you and Mark ate my cake.
That was so good, too. Yes.
Yeah.
At least I posted a picture so you could look at it.
That's true.
Yeah. I had to laugh because when we had the cake, I got a text message from Derek saying, "Did I hear cake?"
Yeah, I was out of town last Friday, and Mark came and filled in the show for me, and next thing I knew, they was talking about cake, and I thought, wait a minute, that's not right.
Nope.
I missed out on the cake.
That's 2 times in a row. You know that, right?
I know. I think Helen must be looking at my schedule and seeing when I'm not here, and then she makes a cake.
That's right. That makes sense.
Yeah, I will. I forgive you, Helen, if you're listening.
All right.
Yeah. No, last weekend I had went away for the weekend, did a youth retreat, and it was a teenage retreat, and I like to get away from time to time and go and do that and help our young people, and it was a spiritual retreat, and it lasted 3 days, so it was good to get out there and just get away from the phones and stuff and try to help our kids get back on track in our community. And when you get back from work from something like that, it's hard to get back in the swing of things and get going again. But it was a pretty good week this week, and didn't have a whole lot of bad things happen. It was just about a normal week. But we do have some announcements that we want to make for upcoming events. One I was sharing with Tim as I went this morning and helped Pastor Dan Fisher. I start to say Dr. Dan because we saying Dr. Dan Ackerbaum, but Pastor Dan Fisher, who is doing a presentation at 10. Well, it was already at 10 o'clock this morning, but doing another one at 7 tonight on the Black Robed Regiment. It's a history lesson and how Christianity and pastors played a role in the revolution in this country. But one of the interesting things about the things that he had brought was the fact of that he brought a lot of artifacts with him, a lot of firearms and swords and musket balls and books and all kind of different memorabilia from the Civil War, from the Revolutionary War, and different wars throughout our country. And it was just the neatest thing to be out there and hold these things in your hand and see where they come from. If you'd like to go up there and check that out tonight at 7, it's open to the public. You can go there and you can look and handle some of these objects and see what it is. He actually had a Revolutionary War musket there that was carried across with George Washington went across another Delaware.
Oh, wow.
And it was neat to hold that in your hands and to know, that that's a significant part of history, and different events and different things that's taken in history has got different weapons and different things from that you can view and look at. And it's just a really neat thing. If you like history and you like the history of our country and like to know a little bit more about it, go up there tonight at 7, and that'll be at Tri-County Auditorium there.
And I know you will love history.
I love history.
Just from our previous shows, you talked a lot of history on our shows.
One of the neat things is he had a book from a soldier that carried with him. It was a book of Psalms from the Revolutionary War, and the book had handwritten pencil in the book where the soldier had wrote in the book, and there were dates in there from 1776 while the war was going on, and different notes in the margins and different things from that. And I just thought that was just the neatest thing, and I could not believe they handed it to me and said, "Here, hold this and look at it." And I thought, you're really going to trust me with the with the book from 1776? But it was just the neatest thing, just be able to look at our history and hold these items from history and learn a little bit about it. Very knowledgeable. Pastor Dan was very knowledgeable about the history of these things and where they come from and the stories behind them and all those kind of things. So if you really want a good history lesson and learn a lot of stuff about our country, go out there tonight at 7 o'clock at Tri-County and listen to what he has to say. It's really neat.
All right. Very good.
Yeah. The other thing right now as we're speaking and going on, the seniors are doing a fish fry at the range at our training facility. So Winfield Clance and the seniors are there if you're a senior and you're listening and you would like to go down to the range and enjoy some fish and be a part of the other seniors that are there, you're still time to go. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to serve at like 11:30 to 12 or something like that, and they're singing, people playing music, different stuff down there. So if you're listening and would like to get down there, if you got any way of getting there, please go because you still got time to get there.
There's a lot of activity up there.
There is.
At that.
Yeah.
What kind of other activities can that be used for?
We do all kind of things there. Different groups use it for different things. I know, like for weapons stuff, they have a lot of concealed handgun groups, and a lot of our local back alley arms, and my mind just went blank. Docks placed in there, the trading post, and a lot of those places do gun classes, had safe handling of firearms and stuff. They use it. Highway patrol trains there, wildlife trains there. A lot of people train at our facility. But for the community, it's also open for the community. You know, we do the senior day like today. We do a fishing day for the seniors. We do a fishing day for our youth. We do different Boy Scout programs and different things there at the facility. So it's open, and all you got to do is schedule it through the sheriff's office. What we do ask is if you're going to do an event that's a non-county sponsored event there at the facility, the county does require you to have liability insurance to hold an event there. So it is still open for the public, and you can hold an event, but you do have to have insurance if it's a non-county function. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So, that is there and available for anybody to take part in that. So we do a lot of things up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
The other thing I want to mention real quick is the fact of that we've got the Vietnam Wall coming in on October 5th through the 7th. It'll be arriving on the 4th. On the 5th, on its way to Patriot Park, it'll be here locally on the 4th. And on the 5th, on its way to Patriot Park, it'll be going that morning. We will be doing a parade through town, an escort with that, with different law enforcement agencies. And different veterans groups and stuff will be escorting that wall through town. It'll be coming into town on 74, westbound on 74 through Bulldog Drive to Peachtree intersection. Be turning right at Peachtree intersection coming into the center of town. When it gets to the center of town, it'll turn right again toward the Methodist Church, go by the school, where hopefully the kids will be out of school, or on the bank there where they can watch it as it comes by the post office, go across the bridge to the park, and we'll turn left at Conahita Park there at the Pool and Wellness Center. We'll go around to Regal Street, turn down by the sheriff's office, and then go on to Patriot Park from there. And we'll be doing a parade for that. And one of the captains asked me if you might want to Facebook Live that, and I told him I'd
That's exactly what I was thinking about. I was thinking,
yeah.
This seems like a perfect time for a ride along,
right?
And talking about that. I would love to do that Facebook Live.
Might even break your drone out for that one.
That'll be fun. Yes. Yeah. I think you were just reading my mind because when you were talking about that whole parade, my mind was sitting there spinning. Now, how can we get this on video?
There you go.
Yeah. So I think that'd be great.
But one of the neat things about that too is once it gets to Patriot Park and becomes setting up there at Patriot Park, we will do a opening ceremonies where there will be some color guards, some different honorary things there. But also there'll be the Special Forces parachute team will be parachuting in.
Nice.
In honor of the Vietnam Wall. Will be landing there on the Swanson property there at Patriot Park. So there'll be a lot of events going on during the opening ceremonies and setting that up. But once it's set up, once the opening ceremonies are over with, then it becomes a place of solitude and a place of silence, to where people that's coming to pay their respects and looking for their loved ones and those that was killed during Vietnam that may have served with some of these folks or friends or family of these folks, where we give them time to reflect and think and without all the distractions and all the other things that are going on. And so we want to be respectful with that. And Roger Swanson has done a great job down there, along with Mark Patterson, the detention center, has done a great job with that, of getting that ready in preparation for the wall, working with the folks from Washington, making sure that we have everything set up and that we're following their rules and guidelines appropriately to get that set up, and that we're not violating any code of ethics or anything that would dishonor the wall. So we're working very hard to get that going. Great. And one of the requirements there was to either have carpet laid out or something for the people to walk on. And our citizens of this county even stepped up, and we had some paving companies volunteer to pave it. So instead of laying carpet on the mud, they actually come and pave the ground to put the
Oh,
wall
wonderful.
on. So we are just ecstatic about the way the community has stepped up and assisted in this, and we expect large crowds for this. So it'll be here for 2 or 3 days, so come enjoy that.
What's the date and time of that parade that you talked about when it's coming
I
into
think
Murphy?
that's the morning of October 5th. I will get you the details on that.
Okay, very good.
But I think it's on the morning of October 5th. But we'll be putting that again beforehand to get everybody to know what time it'll be. And
yeah, that's only a
those
couple
kind of
weeks
things.
away.
Just a
isn't it?
couple weeks. So
All right. And who would I need to talk to kind of while we're doing this thing? It'd be a great idea to do some video and a tour of the Band of Brothers Veterans Park over there, because a lot of people.
Yeah, that is Roger Swanson's. The wall is not actually at the park. It's between the park and the sheriff's office. It's off to itself over there. But while there, the park is open, so that anybody that like to visit the wall can just go down to the park itself and tour that park and the things that are going on over there. So Roger Swanson, that is his creation, and that's what he's kind of put together for honor of the veterans. So Roger Swanson will be the one to contact for that.
You don't think you'd be too shy to talk on the camera, do you?
I don't think so. I think
right.
he would. He'd kind of let you know what he was thinking when he developed it.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right.
The other big topic that's been in the news this week, I think we just need to touch on briefly, and I don't know if we need to dwell here, but was, as you know, at the commission meeting Monday night, there was a large debate and a large talk about animal control in Cherokee
I heard
County.
something about that.
Yeah. It's kind of been the hot topic here
Yes.
recently. One of the reasons why the public forum, Dr. Dan, since this was a hot topic issue, Dr. Dan, upon consulting with him and talking with the county manager, he requested to do an open forum just to get some feedback from the community as to what they felt we needed as far as in the way of animal control and what people would like to see and things of that nature. Now, one thing I want to say about this is that there's kind of been a misconception about animal control a little bit, and a couple things I just want to address quickly. One of them is the fact of that you keep hearing this term leash law being used. Animal control and leash law is two completely different things.
Right.
And when you talk about animal control, a lot of people's minds immediately go to leash law. They go to the fact of keeping animals on your own property, and they can't leave your property, and if they leave your property, they have to be on a leash. Well, that's not necessarily the fact with animal control. That can be done differently. What animal control is about just being responsible with your animals. And if your animals are roaming, if they are loose, if they're creating a nuisance within the community, animal control is to deal with that nuisance and to deal with the owners of those animals to ensure that they take care of their animals and they do what they need to do with their animals. Now, there are state laws that's already on the books through general statutes to enforce. But one of the things that's not on the statutes that we can enforce, and the reason for ordinances, is things like just roaming animals, stray animals. As far as the general statutes are concerned, there is no legality in the statutes that gives anyone the right to capture animals and to take suspected stray animals to the pound. There is no law that enables that. The only one that does enable that is if the county appoints an animal control officer or a dog warden, depending on which direction they go in. But they can give a person or people assigned to that the authority to capture animals, take them to the pounds and stuff. And so the thing that I try to stress to people, and a lot of things is not enforceable because people do things out of ignorance a lot of times, and they do things because they don't know better.
Right.
And they're just trying to help. They're just trying to do the right thing, And so we certainly don't want to charge people with things with crimes when they're committing a crime, but they're just trying to do the right thing. But one of the things out there that people need to be very careful of is that when you pick an animal up that appears to be stray and you take it to the pound, if it belongs to someone, if it's someone's animal, you don't have the authority or the right to do that, and it's actually a felony to steal a dog. It's a felony.
Really?
It's a felony to take it to deprive someone of their animal. And so people need to be very careful about that, about taking animals and picking them up and transporting them in the cars and taking them to different places and the pounds and selling them at flea markets and all those kind of things. Because if it's not your animal, you could technically be charged with a crime for picking those animals up. So I just want people to be careful about that.
Should the animal have like a collar with identification and the contact number if they're out roaming?
They do. The state law, as far as the rabies law, actually states in the law that all animals that you own are supposed to be collared with a rabies tag. And it's supposed to have an identifier on that rabies tag as to where the owner's name, where the rabies shots were given, and all that information with that on that tag. So technically, you're supposed to be tagged for your animals. The issue is, and this is the thing that I like to share with people when we talk about animal control, is I could take every officer I have and start enforcing tagged animals for not having their tags, not having the rabies tags. And my officers couldn't accomplish anything else because for so many animals that are in the county that doesn't have the rabies tags and have them shown. So those are things that we really can't, for practicalities, enforce. That we really can't get out and enforce the animals that's roaming without tags. And one of the things that we had talked about in that meeting Monday night was the fact is that with animal control, for the most part, the ordinance is a good ordinance. You can go on our county website and pull the animal control ordinance off. It is a good ordinance, but a lot of that ordinance mirrors what's already in state law. One of the problems with that ordinance, as I said, was not covered in state law, was nuisance animals. Well, with nuisance animals, that's part of that ordinance that the county had adopted back in 2001. The problem with that ordinance, as far as prosecuting that ordinance, charging people, writing them tickets, citing them to court for violation of the ordinance, is the fact is that is written with subjectivity and is very ambiguous when you read it. That it depends on who is looking at it from their point of view as to whether they violated the law or not. And so what that does is that gives defense attorneys an open floor to argue against every charge that we've ever charged under the nuisance law. And the district attorney's office has found it very difficult to prosecute that ordinance because that nuisance section of that law, at Section 5, the nuisance part of that ordinance is so ambiguous and so subjective that there's no teeth to it as far as to prosecute people. So one of the things that we've kind of suggested is for the county commissioners to take a look at that ordinance, and if they want to continue with the ordinance, if they want to continue with having a county ordinance and trying to enforce that ordinance, that section of that ordinance is something that might need to be looked at to try to set some parameters in there to where you have clear-cut violations. Whereas, for example, if an animal has to be on your property more than 2 times in a week or more than 5 times in a week, or whatever parameter you want to set up, or so many times a year or so many times a month. But it needs a parameter set up to where there's a clear-cut violation and it's not subjective to whoever's looking at it. One of the other things with that is it has statements in it like an animal that annoys a human being. Well, again, that's subjective. You could the illustration I used is you could have an animal sitting on a piece of property on a stump staring at you, and it may not be doing anything, but to you that may be annoying.
Yeah, I'm getting annoyed just thinking about it.
So you may have one person that it doesn't matter, they don't care, it's not bothering me, but another person that may find something annoying. So to be able to charge someone with that and to put them into court, really there's not a clear-cut definition of what an animal has to do to fall in violation of that ordinance. And I hope that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
To the people who are listening.
Basically, the legal terms on the paper need to be enforceable.
Right.
And if you can't enforce what's on paper, if it's going to, that's a waste of time.
And one of the things that's also repeated in that when you're talking about words is like words like habitual and continuous. So again, that's subjective, because if I have an animal that is on my property and it's there 2 times in a month, I may consider that habitual, but someone else may not. They may say, well, that doesn't that is not habitual. It needs to be X amount of time. Oh, sorry. It needs to hit the microphone. I talk with my hands a lot for those who don't know me. But somebody else may look at that and say, well, it needs to be an X amount of times more than that for it to be habitual. So I think there's some parameters need to be set up that says so many violations have to happen before it falls under this particular nuisance.
Right.
And really the other option for that is, and some people like it, some people don't, but the other option for that is if the commission board themselves or the county manager or those that's in the powers that be, if they look at this and say, well, anything's ambiguous and it's unenforceable and we don't even need this, then the county commissioners have the option of abolishing that ordinance and just enforcing state laws and not having an ordinance at all. Right. So there's a lot of options that goes with this, and I'm not presumptuous enough to try to tell a commission board as to what they should do or shouldn't do. But there are options out there for them to make a decision on as to where we need to go with this. My issue as being the elected sheriff is I have to enforce these things, and if they're ambiguous and subjective, we can't enforce it. Right. And it's confusing to the public because they see these ordinances on the website that says, why are you not charging people with this? Why are you not enforcing it? And then having to go through this whole process of explaining to people why we can't enforce it. And some people get it, some people don't, and it frustrates a lot of people because it's there and it says we have animal control ordinance and we have these things, but they don't understand why we can't enforce it and why we can't follow through with this.
They probably should sit in some of those court cases and
Right.
realize how much time is wasted when it just gets thrown out because of the language.
Right. And even at that, I know it's a problem in different communities and different areas within our county. And so one of the reasons why I volunteered for Dr. Dan to speak at this commission meeting was the fact of that I'm not passionate about animal control. Mm-hmm. I don't care whether we have it or we don't have it. And I certainly am not passionate about a leash law. I certainly don't want a leash law. Mm-hmm. I have animals that roam free and are semi-free. I have an invisible fence, but mm-hmm. but I don't support a leash law or anything like that. And I'm not even passionate about animal control law. But as an elected official, I think we have the obligation, if a section of our community is passionate about it, and if a section of our community says this is a problem that they want it looked at, I think we should at least hear what they have to say.
Right.
And we should at least address the issue and hear what all sides have to say about it, and then make a best decision we can make from that point.
And a lot of people are extremely passionate either on one side or the other. Right. I just read some of the comments on our Facebook page about it. And there are some very vocal people
right.
on both sides, and I get both sides.
Yeah.
I grew up in Hanging Dog out there where we had plenty of land, and the dogs just they stuck around the house, did wander in the woods to come back home. But now I live, and my dogs are fenced in because right. I don't want to have to go to get them at my neighbor's house all the time, or something come in and attack them. So
another thing too, just being honest about it. When we were growing up in Cherokee County in the 70s, and
that hurt.
but even those before that, our older generations that was here a lot longer than that, people didn't live as close to each other as they live now.
Right.
And you had bigger parcels of property. You had, most homes were sitting on multiple acres, and your closest neighbor was a half a mile away.
And in my case, all of our neighbors on that road were all relatives.
Right, we're all relatives, all friends, all knew each other, all got along, kind of thing. And we're just living in a different county now.
It's completely different.
And so when you have neighbors who literally can throw a rock out their window and hit their neighbor's house, the situation's a little bit different than
and yet they've never met each other.
Right, and sometimes don't even know who they are or where they're from or anything like that. And so the situation's a little bit different than it was when we were growing
mm-hmm.
up. And like I say, I'm not necessarily a proponent of any of these things. I just feel like that since our county is changing, and since we don't live in the same county we lived in, we should at least hear people out and should at least
mm-hmm.
hear their concerns and what they have. And then if we make that decision later on that things need to stay the way they are, or abolish the animal control ordinance, or change it, or refurbish it, or what we need to do, at least we can say that we took time out to listen to people's concerns and what they had to say, And obviously, when you have people that's passionate on both sides of the issue, obviously you're not going to please everyone. Someone's going to be unhappy at the end of the day, because you do have two polar extremes to the issue. But one thing that I think is important, and one thing I mentioned also Monday night, was the fact of that, if you write an ordinance or reverbish the ordinance to set parameters, one of the things I think that we need to be conscious of is the fact that we have things such as hunters in the area that still use dogs to hunt with, whether it's coon hunters or bear hunters or possums or squirrels or rabbits or whatever it may be. And so there needs to be some language in that ordinance that protects people's right to hunt and protects people's right to do that as a sport. Obviously, when I've hunted a lot in my lifetime, I'm a hunter. I love to hunt. But when you turn dogs loose and they strike out after a bear or a coon or whatever it may be, they can't control where that wild animal goes. And if it runs through someone's yard and the bear dogs are right behind it as it goes through the yard, it's not pertinent to charge a bear hunter with a violation of a animal control ordinance, because he has no control of where the animal goes to. And so we need to be protective of those folks also, and be protective of their rights. And it's a very complicated situation. So I don't envy the commissioners at all with this, because I know they have a very difficult a task ahead of them to try to address this issue. But unfortunately, it's an issue that keeps coming up, and it keeps coming up year after year after year. So we're at a place now that we're going to have to make some kind of decision as to what we're going to do with it.
Has our county ever had an animal control officer or a dog catcher in the past?
We have. And when this ordinance first was created back in 2001, we did have volunteers that did that and worked through the Humane Society. And the commission board has the authority also to appoint someone that's non-law enforcement to do that. So they could partner with Humane Society, Logan's Run, any of the rescue places, or just a person off the street. They could just assign someone to that task. There's training in schools they have to go to, and certain things they can't do outside law enforcement, such as if they go on someone's property and sees an animal or things like that. By statute, it says a law enforcement officer has to be present to do that. So there's things they can't do without law enforcement. But we have had them in the past. But one of the problems, like I say, has been in the past when people have been cited or charged, there has been no resolution to that and no prosecutions through the court system. And so it finally got to a place where, why are we doing this? Why are we continuing trying to enforce an ordinance that's not enforceable? So
didn't at one point that dog catcher job, wasn't that an election, or am I thinking of Mayberry?
Well, I think there is an actual dog warden that can be an elected position. I don't know if it's still on the books as elected position or not, but I know it was in the past. But I do know that the county commissioners through statute has the right to appoint an animal control officer. So they can do that without an election. They can just appoint someone for that task. And like I say, I want to make sure everybody's very clear about this and understands this, because I mentioned it Monday night also at the meeting. I'm not here to argue for animal control or argue against animal control. I'm not here either way. I'm just here as the sheriff saying I need something I can enforce. So if we want to do this and this is something we want to do, I need something I can enforce. If I have something I can't enforce, then we're better off just to do away with it, not have it at all. And so that's kind of what my position on the whole thing is. But I will say again, I will not be in favor of a leash law. I don't think that we're in a place that animals need to be confined to their own property, because we do live in a rural area, and we do live in a place where people hunt for sport and dogs roam free and things of that nature. So I'm not in support of that. But as far as the animal control itself, I'll be fine either way. I just need to know what to do.
Now the city of Murphy, they actually have a leash law, but the county does not.
Right.
So is there a lot of enforcement inside the town of Murphy? I know that's not your jurisdiction.
Right. One of the things that I know from talking with Murphy officers and the town officials in Murphy is it's kind of the same situation that we face in the county. They do have a leash law within the town, but that's hard to enforce. It's hard to enforce a lot of times without a person who's dedicated to being a dog catcher or dedicated to being an animal control officer. If you got a deputy or a police officer that's out here that's in a marked cruiser and there's a stray dog, what are they supposed to do with it? if I catch it, am I throwing it in the back of my car? Once I get it in the back of my car, what am I going to do? How am I going to catch it?
Right.
I don't have catch poles. I don't have tranquilizers, and I'm not certified to use a tranquilizer. So how are we going to do this? And by statute, by state law, a person that's designated to be an animal control officer or do that's their primary duty, has mandatory training and classes they have to take. So not just any deputy or any police officer can go out and just be a dog catcher or catch that without taking those classes. So if we assign that to all of our people, say all of our deputy sheriffs are now doing animal control, we would have to send every deputy sheriff we have through animal control school and take those classes in order for them to do that.
I see your time slipping away with us. I want to bring up one more quick topic.
Okay.
Last night, I don't know if you saw it on Facebook last night, but it got quite a few shares and laughs about when to call 911. Last night, there was a widespread internet outage that affected, there was a router out in Atlanta. And
my internet went out last night.
Yeah, and people were calling 911 to, I guess... That's not exactly life-threatening.
That's not an emergency.
And I had to post, after all the comments, I had to post this cute little meme. That the person sitting there on the phone said, my internet went out for 4 minutes straight. I'm okay. But the 911 operator was a jerk.
So that's typically kind of the information we get too. But.
Yeah. So when is the right time to call 911?
The actual 911. Dialing 911 on your phone is reserved for emergency only.
Now, they can call dispatch the regular...
They can call the non-emergency number. The non-emergency number is fine to do that, but 911 itself is for emergency only. So actually, there is a law that if you call 911 and it's not an emergency, there is actually a law that covers that, and you can be charged with dialing 911 when it's not an emergency. And so people need to understand that, if you need to ask the dispatcher a question, if you call in trying to figure out what's going on or you want to ask a question, you need to call in on that non-emergency line, 835-3144.
I was just going to look it up.
Yeah, is that non-emergency line. You can call in on it. But I will tell you this, too. When you call in on that non-emergency line, if dispatch is handling emergencies, they're not going to sit there and have a conversation with you on the non-emergency line.
Right.
So if you're calling in about your internet out, but dispatch has a wreck going on and a house on fire and police officers in a chase or something going on, they're going to be real quick and real short with you and hang the phone up, and they're not going to sit there and have a conversation with you about your internet being out. So,
and that's really nothing that dispatch can do for you. I mean, you call your internet company. Same with the power. If your power's out, you call the power company, unless there's a emergency that there's active power line on your house.
Now, one thing, like for the power being out, for example, if you're coming downtown and the power's out and there's no red lights and cars are about to have an accident, then that might be something pertinent that dispatch needs to know. We've got a power outage here. Just letting you know, we've got traffic issues, traffic problems. That way they can dispatch officers to the scene to take care of the traffic issues. But just because your power's out at home is not a 911 call, or it's not. And unless, let me put a preface there, unless you're on life-saving equipment.
Right.
If you're on, if you have equipment at home that's life-saving equipment that depends on power, most have a battery backup, but it's limited.
And a lot of people that are like that make arrangements with the power company too, so they get on priority.
They get priority on those things. But one of those things, it's okay, if you're on life-saving equipment and your power's out and it's been off for a while and you think your battery's getting low, that might be something you could call dispatch and say, hey, just giving you a heads up. I've only got about 15 minutes of battery left. If the power don't come on, I'm going to need an ambulance, to come to my residence or whatever. So, those are things that is acceptable. That obviously that's an emergency if you're on life-saving equipment. But just the fact of you can't get on YouTube is not it's not a reason to call 911.
I can't catch up on the latest dance moves.
Right.
But people also need to realize too that if there's a widespread power outage, there's a good chance that 911 center may be affected by that too. So your equipment is maybe not working
typically
to full capacity.
What happens is we run off a generator. We have battery backup and a generator when the power goes out to keep us operational. But like everything else that operates off batteries is the more you use it, and the more computing power you're putting through it, the quicker those batteries drain. So we're kind of under the same situation as everybody else. We have an emergency generator backup after that'll keep us going. But we try to be cautious when the power's out, that we're not over
But you
using stuff.
You rely on internet quite a bit at the office. It's amazing how technology's changed, and in situations like that, you basically have to go old school and do things by paper until that is restored.
Yeah, there is actually a new law come out from Raleigh that has talked about linking all the 911 centers in the state together. There's 117 dispatch centers in the state, and linking all of those together through fiber optics and digital, so that everyone can be a backup to everyone else.
That's a good idea.
So that's the next phase in what they're doing within the state.
I'm glad to hear that. It's amazing because I don't understand everything of how it connects, but I know we lost internet here at the studio one time. There was a IP address, our static IP address had changed or something, and I called our engineer Corey up, and he was in Portland, and somehow he routed the internet at the tower down to our studio within a couple of minutes, so we were able to get back on here.
I don't understand it either. I don't understand that.
It worked.
It's like a light switch. You flip it and the lights come on. That's all I can tell you.
All right. Well, I know our time has come and gone. Anything you wanted to add before we close out?
No, I just want to wish everybody out there a good weekend. It's supposed to be pretty, it looks like, and looks like we're going to have good temperatures for the next few days, and going to be warm again, and fall's here, so summer decided it would hang around a little bit longer. And we'll see what this.
I don't mind that a bit.
We'll see what this hurricane out in the South Atlantic's going to do as it comes up. So it's still a little bit unpredictable right now, but we'll see what happens with it.
Sheriff, thank you very much.
Okay, you all have a great day.
Pleasure as always. It is WKRK Radio, Murphy, 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable 25, worldwide at country.am. 1140 our time. Stay tuned. Pastor Odd Brown coming up next here on WKRK.